Hello, friends, and welcome to today's session on practical examples of using 5Ws and H techniques for generating vital research ideas and also for your research writing. This is part 2. We have looked at it uh, under part 1 earlier. Today, we'll be looking at it under part 2. Let's move on. I have with me again Dr. Godwin Asemota. So we want to ask ourselves, why use the technique at all? Why use this 5Ws and H? The 5Ws and H techniques, we are using it together. They are powerful questioning framework used to refine ideas, develop focused research questions, and structure logical research thinking. Why do we use this? Why? It is to help us as researchers, postgraduate students, consultants, to help us to think critically about your topic, to help you to help us to clarify the scope and direction of your research, and to help us to avoid vague and unfocused proposals. When you are writing, even at the concept stage, when you are drafting your concept paper, this technique we are looking at, the 5Ws and H, will help. It will also help. This technique will also help you to identify the gaps and stakeholders that will be involved in the research. It will also help to improve research quality, especially during proposed writing, and also help you and to conceptualize your concepts. Okay, for example, if you are looking at employee performance, and if the problem is poor performance, and you want to use the 5Ws and H as a guide, the question you need to ask yourself at the initial stages: why are employees' productivity low, or why are their performances low? Okay, or also, if you want to use that is for why, who is most affected among the employees? Are the casual workers or the permanent workers, depending on the industry you are looking at? Okay, then how can employees their performance be improved upon? When does their performance normally nosedive or fall? What are the causes? Those are the questions you can use. When does it happen? These are the causes. So what is the W's and H technique about? Okay, what is it about? It is a systematic method of inquiry that helps researchers break down a research problem into 6 core components. We have the who, that is, we are talking about the subjects, the participants, the respondents, the stakeholders in your research, and those that will be affected and involved in your research. And what is, when you ask what, the second W is talking about the issue at hand that you are interested in researching or exploring, the variable or the phenomenon in question. When, the time frame or relevant period. Okay, why, the significance of the study. Why do you think you should embark on the study? Then how, the methodology, the processes that you need to go through for doing the research. And also where, is talking about the location, the location of your research. Okay, and here we are going to look at the stages that we undergo during research. When we conduct research, what are the stages? So we are going to align these 5Ws and H along the research stages: the introduction, the statement of the problem, literature review, methodology, analysis of data, interpretation of data, findings, summary, conclusion and recommendations, contribution to knowledge, further studies, or open question. Every research goes through these stages. So that's why we have taken the time to focus on the stages of research and using the 5 W's and H to guide our discussion this time around. So let's look at the introduction. We are looking at what is the introduction for the research topic. We have said before now that, every chapter of your research, thesis or dissertation has an introductory aspect. It has the introduction, okay? You have to introduce your readers, your stakeholders, your participants, and whoever is going to, make use of the research in future to know it's like a preamble to the body of that chapter, and even the body of the research you are undergoing. So when you look at the introduction, it's very important. What is the introduction for the research topic? You have to introduce your stakeholders, your participant to the body of the research. Okay? Why is the introduction necessary? When is the introduction needed? Who needs the introduction? Where is the introduction needed? How is the introduction written and used? Like I said earlier, the introduction is very important in your research and at every stage. It is necessary to introduce your stakeholders, your readers. And at the beginning of your research, the introduction is necessary, because when we are talking about when is the introduction needed, it is needed at the beginning, at the even concept stage, at the introduction stage, the statement of the problem stage, the chapter 2, the review of relevant literature, the methodology, the analysis of data, and also the conclusion, recommendations, and also if you are recommendations, and if you are looking at the contribution to knowledge, you still have to introduce your readers into the body of the chapter you are looking at, because it is through that your participants, your stakeholders, your readers will be able to have an idea of what you are talking about in that research, and also in that chapter. Okay, Dr. Godwin can come into this.
Thank you very much. The issue of introduction is important because introduction is a lead to whatever you are writing. It gives the reader an information of what your intentions are. And it is that introduction that indicates whether what you intended to do was achieved or was not achieved. If it was not achieved, what was responsible? Why was it so? In which circumstance? And in what location? So that's why it is important that introduction gives a brief information on what is expected and why it is necessary. And at the end of the chapter or subsection, introduction gives a guide that you have achieved what you want to achieve, or it is having some challenges that needed to be gone into. Thank you very much, Dr. Lucan.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Godwin. Like we have said, what is the research about? That is at the introduction stage of that your chapter. Even chapter 1 is the whole chapter 1 talks about the introduction, and in that chapter you find the the preamble into the introductory chapter. Okay, I hope we are getting that. And also, after that, you now look at the statement of the problem. You talk about beginning the introduction under in chapter 1, which is the introduction to the research and the thesis as a whole. We look at the global trends of what you are talking about, the topic, the global trends, the continental trends, what happened at the continental level, the regional, then local, where you are going to conduct this, the location. You now narrow down to that place of your the African context, so to say. You localize. If it is Zambia, you are in Zambia conducting that research, or you are in South Africa, you are in Nigeria or Kenya or Tanzania or in the UK or the United States, one of the universities there, or you are conducting a research for an NGO or whatever. You have to introduce it. Okay, so what is the research about? Are you investigating, examining the influence of employee organizational support on employee performance in a private organization or manufacturing company or a service or an educational institution? So you can see, if you are looking at that, you can see that you have already introduced in that on a topic. You have seen the independent variables, the dependent variables, the population, the setting, and the location. So the topic should be clear enough. So it is what you are talking about, what you want to do, okay, in that organization, about the topic. Then you talk about why is the introduction necessary. It's necessary because you have a problem at hand. For example, if the problem, like I said, it is about poor performance or low job satisfaction or low commitment among employees in that organization, then why is it is necessary? Because if you do not conduct that research, what will be the consequences of low commitment for a long time among employees in the organization? Okay, and also it may lead to turnover. It may lead to reduced moral. They are not motivated to work. One problem will lead to another. So that is why it is necessary that you are trying to engage in this. Then when is the study needed? Like now is needed because you have already registered for the course and that's your interest. Now is needed, and also maybe a time when the structural reforms in that organization, in terms of restructuring, reorganization, when redundancy wants to take place, you have to now conduct a research. That's why human resource practitioners and personnel, professionals in an organization should know how to conduct research. He serves as an internal consultant in that organization. That's one of the functions of a professional human resource manager or director at whatever level. So the study is needed when you want to do reorganization, when you want to have a restructuring. You have to know you have to have a baseline data. Where are we now? Where do you want to go in the next 5-10 years? And what is happening now that will want to dictate to the organization to reduce staff staff number, and also to retain good hands. So, and there are a lot of things you can adopt there. The LIFO, the FIFO, the last in, first out, or first in, first out. You have some strategies and which we are familiar with. Then who needs this study? University. If you are conducting it in the university environment, university administrators, university lecturers, policymakers, the human resource units, and other stakeholders in the society. Where is it conducted? Wherever you are, okay? If you are in Ghana and you are schooling and you are conducting it, that will be your location. If you are in Kenya, Kenya will be your location. If you are in Mozambique, anywhere you are and you are conducting it there. And another thing is that if maybe you are on scholarship and you have gotten the funding to do it maybe outside your anywhere you are conducting and collecting data. That is your location. Okay. How is it introduced? You introduce the chapter, like I said, starting with the global trends of that particular topic. What has happened in other countries globally? What has happened in the continent globally? What has happened in the region globally? And I mean, regionally, not globally now. Globally first, continental second, regional third, and then your local environment where you are conducting the research. Do you want to add anything, Dr. Godwin?
I believe it's okay. Like what you just said, it's important that the research is properly written and set out, and that each of those components are well commercialized so that it can make meaning and reduce bias and make it clear to all and sundry so that when the work is done, the issue of credibility will not be at stake. Thank you very much.
Let's proceed. The next chapter is the statement of the problem. The next subtopic under chapter 1, because like I said earlier, we are looking at each subsection of each chapter using the 5 W's and H technique. Okay, so this one is talking about the statement of the problem, which is the heart of your research. Any research that will be undertaken, the starting point is talking about the problem. What is the issue? What is the problem? The problem may be a growing decline in employee commitment or a growing decline in employee job performance or productivity. There are a lot of topics there. The morale, is it dwindling? In which organization? Is it higher education organization? Is it in the manufacturing company? Is it in a service industry? If it's a service, and you have service industries are many, you have telecommunication industries, the media industry, you have the higher education industry, which is a sector. You have the secondary school, you have the primary, so I'm just using that as an example. So you must know the problem. What is you now use for example, the 5 W's, saying what is the real problem I want to solve here. When you identify the problem, it's not enough. You must, in defining the problem, it is what gives you a scope and a boundary of what to explore or to investigate. Then where is the problem? Where does the problem occur? Is it among full-timers? If you are looking at the higher education sector, the universities, are you looking at the public or private or both? The problems you are looking at may vary, and the problems may be tetra-headed, that is many, but you still have to narrow down to a particular one, and that's why in the process of crafting your general objective, these other problems will come up under your individual independent variables, which will now have indicators on each of the independent variables that you are now measuring against the dependent variables. Okay, so that is how you are now going to separate. So that's why you now, from general objective, if you have decided to look at investigating or examining the influence of organizational support on employee commitment in a manufacturing company, you have to mention the manufacturing company. There are a lot of manufacturers. You still have to narrow down to say, so with that, you now break them down from the general objective to specific objectives. In the specific objectives, you now have to mention each of the independent variables as it will affect the dependent variables. Okay, the dependent variables, because when you have the dependent, there is a one core, and then it will have other indicators under the main dependent variable. Okay, so you ask, where is the problem? We have said that's what we have just said. Who are the people affected by the problem? Are they faculty members if we are talking about higher institution? I always talk about higher institution because I've been a lecturer in the university for quite some time, for over 2 decades. So I'm used to doing that. I'm used to giving examples of that. But when we look at other service industry, higher educational institutions too they are service industry. So we can always give other examples. Are we talking about administrators in the organization? Are we talking about leaders in the organization? At which level? Because we have 3 tiers of management: the top, the middle, and the lower levels of management. I mean, the 3 levels, the 3 tiers of management, these are pointing to the leadership level and the leadership types that you have within that organization. Okay, when the issue arise, when does the problem occur? Maybe during their maybe during the time that the university environment has witnessed some changes, transformation, because now universities are run as business entities, no longer depending on the government. Even the government can no longer fund many of the universities anymore. They do to their own best, to their own uh, uh, best financial capabilities, but it's not enough because universities has been transformed. New courses have been introduced. We have online, we have on-site. A lot of new programs have been set up. So universities are now being run as a business entity. So how can the problems be solved? Those are the questions. Remember, we are looking at the 5 W's and H. How can it be solved? Through what? Through the process of gathering data, analyzing data, and doing the research well, we now suggest what could be done through your conclusion and recommendations and further research. So I think we have touched all the 5 W's and H. I don't know if Dr. Godwin would like to add to this.
Yes, it's okay. You have done well. Continue.
Oh, thank you, Dr. Godwin. We now move to the next stage of the research. This is literature review of related literature. This is another important aspect of research. Even every stage of research is important. If you miss one, the other stages will be affected. Review of related literature. The key terms here are literature, view, and review. Okay? We are looking at the practical examples of using the 5 W's and H techniques for generating vital ideas, for generating vital research ideas or in research writing. What type and sources of literature review do we need? What type? You look at literature related to the topic you have at hand. Recent literature. Okay? If you are looking at investigating organizational culture, for example, you must look at literature on organizational culture at the global level, continental level, regional, and your local. How many the authors, how many authors, or how have they researched this area by previous authors, past authors, okay, scholars in the field of organizational culture. And also the field, you look at theories in organizational culture, and it depends on what you are looking at. Is it the investigating the influence of organizational culture on employee commitment or on employee performance, for example? Then you are going to look at commitment or performance depending on the topic, the independent variables and the dependent variables. You look at the theories. When you are reading the literature related to your topic, you must ensure that you are searching relevant literature that will help you to conceptualize your topic very well and know the scope of your work. Okay, and then you look at those things. Then the next one is where to source it from. You can source your literature from peer-reviewed journals, Scopus, JSTOR, ResearchGate, African journals online that are of quality, and they are certain evidence-based reporting and publishing research that have been proved to be of quality. Why is it important to review related literature? Even many reasons and many points are here to identify gaps done in the literature by other scholars, to identify supporting theoretical papers or theories backing up your thoughts line, okay, and even justifying your focus. Literature review is very important and critical to your study, because without backing up, you are not the original person. You must back it up with the citations that you have read. You are not copying and pasting. You have to be careful that you don't commit academic fraud. So when you study, you must know how to jot down, rephrase what has been said in the understanding of the author, and it must mean the same thing. And then you quote the dates, the year, and the journals that you have gleaned from, and the publisher. Okay. Then when to gather it, you have to start gathering the data, the literature, right from the beginning of your research. You start with this, you can start with desktop reviewing. You look at from Google search, advanced Google search, peer-reviewed, all the journals that are related to. Then you start by and by, and you still have to gather all the literature until you finish and you graduate, because it's a long journey, especially if you are embarking on your PhD. Who uses this literature review? The researcher, the supervisors, the peer reviewers, and the readers, and the people, the stakeholders that will make use, the policy makers that will make use of your research work at the end of the day. Because we are looking, you are the one using it with your supervisors, but at the end of the day, the literature that you have written after you have graduated will be used by other researchers, students, or the practitioners in the field that you are writing on, and other stakeholders. Okay, how is it done? You do it through thematic synthesis of your findings in terms of the literature you are organizing, and you organize them according to variables and relevance, and these are very important. You organize them, you put them together. It must flow, it must be coherent, it must be clear. There must be clarity. When you are writing, you must write what you mean to write, not what you are thinking or assuming. Nobody will be reading your brain when you are writing something down. It is what you have written down that will be read and interpreted thus. So you don't assume, and you don't write a research paper, whether for publication, for thesis, or project, or whatever, or report. You don't write the way you are talking. The way academic papers have its own language, it has its own vocabularies, which we must be skillful enough, and that is the essence of these videos. We ourselves as researchers, learning is a continuous process. But you see, if you feel that you have stopped learning, that is the beginning of So it's a continuous process. There are a lot of things to learn. There are a lot of new things in research and in your area. So I believe that we continue to learn, because continuous learning, organizational learning is the in thing now. Even with the advent of social media and technology, learning cannot stop. But whoever stops learning is already dying gradually. But I believe we are interested. That's why we are here with you, and you are listening to us, and you are going to watch this video. Okay, thank you so much. Let's proceed to methodology. Dr. Godwin would like to add if he wants to add to it, to the review of literature on the 5 Ws and H.
Thank you very much, Dr. Olukemi. Actually, what you have just said are the core of the review. What you've explained, review means again and again and again. You are seeing it in new perspectives, new ways, new meanings, new synthesis. That's why you talk about synthesis. It must be synthesized. It must be put together to be coherent and clear, no meaning more than one thing, so that whatever you have written is evidence-based, it is clear, it is not nebulous, it is not fluke, so that whatever it is, it can be verified. That's why you talk about cross-referencing in your literature review and the authors. So that's why it is important that when you are writing, the authors are there, the dates are there, they are verifiable. It's not you just write things without sources. That is why it is important that when you are reviewing literature, it is credible literature, not yellow journalism, not things that are not clear, that the sources uh, um, are dark. So that's why when you are doing a review, it must be clear, it must be concise, it must be precise, accurate, and it must mean what you have said. Thank you very much, Dr. Lukem.
Thank you, Dr. Godwin. Let's proceed. The next stage of research that we are looking at is methodology, using the 5 Ws and H to critically think through the research processes and the research ideas so that we can come up with quality research. Methodology is key, which the methodology generally is the chapter 3, generally speaking, but it may vary from one university to another depending on the house style and the formatting of what they want, okay, and depending on the discipline, and the level of the level of your study, okay. Methodology, what are we looking at here? What type of methodology? What type? Is it the mixed methods, qualitative and quantitative, both, or you are just using one? But in most of the research at PhD level, they normally go for the mixed methods, okay. Then where is the methodology used? We are to apply it across selected population and the sample you have. You are looking at, for example, if you are looking at employees in the manufacturing, that is your population. But which of them are you going to sample? The male, the female, the senior managers, or the principal managers, or you are going to mix all those. So that is, we are looking at the type of the methodology and who will be selected among the population frame, okay? That will determine your sampling frame, and also we look at when to use it, okay? During both exploratory or explanatory phases. When do you use the methodology? You have to use the methodology in the research. You must know it right from the beginning because it helps you to determine your resources, your time frame, your geographical location, and many other things, okay? Then also, why is that method? It is to help you to explore the complexity of the phenomenon you are measuring or you want to investigate. If it is the cognitive and if it is quantitative, how do you validate the patterns? How do you validate the data you want to use? And even the tools for gathering the data is very important. Anything scientific must be done in such a way that it is measurable, specific, achievable, and it is time framed. The timing, it is time bound, and it is within the framework of the period of time that you must work towards, okay? How is it implemented? The methodology, you have started with literature review of related articles that are topics related to your work, and then you have to do your piloting to ensure that if there are some things you have designed in the questionnaires, which is your measuring tool, and they are not good enough, it will be restructured, reframed, and you have panel of judges, experts that will sit in your seminar at the concept paper or research proposal that will fine tune, and you have to do it again and again until it is validated and it shows reliability. Then before you can go, that's we are talking about how to, the methodology. And then if it is you want to combine the mixed method, the qualitative and quantitative, the questionnaire will be there. Maybe you want to involve some groups to discuss on certain topics that are affecting, which is the qualitative aspect. You can embark on the focus group discussions, interviews, observation, depending on the topic you are looking at and what you have designed. Okay, I think that is, I've looked at the what, the why, the where, the when, the whose approach. Okay, the framework, which approach are you going to use, or whose methodology, which methodology. Okay, Dr. Godwin, please come in here
Thank you very
to add
much,
to it.
Dr. Lukemi. Actually, the methodology is a very broad-based aspect of research. There are so many things you can do when it comes to methodology. If you are looking at social science research, it is easier to be talking about qualitative, quantitative. When you are in the sciences, there is a broad range of methodologies available. Are you doing construction? Are you simulating? Are you doing verification? Are you doing validation? Are you doing analysis? Are you doing experimental work? Are you doing synthesis? So it's a range, myriad methodologies are available. So it's not one size fits all. There are a lot of things you can do. Ethnography, there are a lot of things you can do. So ex post facto, there are a lot of things. That is, you are seeing, you are working from results to theories. Is it guided theory? So there are a lot of things there. So methodology is a broad topic, which is program specific, which is dependent on what you are researching on. Is it pattern recognition? What are you recognizing? What patterns are you seeing? So these are things, and each of them has different things that have to be considered. What is important? Why is it important? Who is affected? Where is it applied? Who will it affect more, and why? How it is the methodology you are talking about. So what is specific? Are you going to do a design? Are you going to do testing? Are you going to measure? What are you measuring? Against what? What are the environments you are considering? So these are things that affect your methods, and your methods are different depending on the phenomenon under investigation. So methodology is a big and expansive aspect of the research, and it is the basis upon which your research is going to be assessed, whether it is credible or not. So methodology is vital, is at the core of any research. Whatever you have done, methodology, how you collected your data, how they are gathered, how they are analyzed, how they are put together. Is it coherent? Is it precise? Is it accurate? Is it? So a lot of things are used to check. That's why you have a lot of rubrics around to check whether what you have done is good enough. Thank you, Dr. Lukemi.
Let's progress to data gathering. Data gathering. Okay. Next stage. What is data gathering? Which data to gather? Why gather the data? Where do you obtain the data? When do you gather the data? Who gathers the data? How do you gather the data? You see, after data gathering, we are going to look at analysis of data. Okay. Oh, okay. Sorry, I've already. But let's talk about the data uh, gathering. What kind of data is it about? The data you are going to gather must be on the topic you are embarking upon to investigate. It's very important. If you are talking about organizational culture, the data you're going to gather, which will show in your questionnaire, which is the measuring tool, which is the tool for gathering the data, must reflect organizational culture, and commitment, organizational culture or employee performance. That is the topic you are looking at. So, and that is it. That is the type of data you are going to, okay? Where to get it? Is it in that organization that you have decided, among other organizations, haven't completed the sampling formula, and you have come up with representation of the population? Then you go to where they are, and then so it may in that organization, in that location, in that nation. So it may be academic department, human resource, or depending, or among the leaders, depending on the topic. Okay, who collects the data? You, the principal researcher, and other trained research assistants, because it's allowed that you train others, because you cannot be in 3 places at the same time. So you have they are representing your legs and your hands and eyes there, as your ambassadors to distribute and administer the questionnaires on your behalf. And you must train them to have the idea, to be in the know what they are supposed to do, how to talk to the respondents, the participants there, and to make them relax, in order to train them on the ethics of collecting data and the responses from the respondents. When do you, depending on your time frame and on your budget and your time frame that you have already mapped out, in Gantt chart, what you have already proposed. These are the proposed and these are the actual. Once you have proposed and you are now actualizing them, you have already accomplished you rule out. The proposed will still be standing there. You look at. So it depends on your Gantt chart template that you have mapped out at the beginning of the research. It will help you to monitor where and when. Okay, why gather the data? The data is very important. Okay, I call it data, I call it data. So please allow me, because at times you use the two. I use the two together, but it means the same thing. So why do you gather the data? To either measure the relationships between the independent variables and the dependent variables, or to examine the influence, the extent, the significance, okay, of the two variables you want to measure. And how you gather data using your questionnaires. Okay, it may be you go to the field physically with your research assistants after you have trained them, or you administer the questionnaire, your tools of research. It may be electronically through surveys, via Google Forms, interviews, through Zoom, and you review other documents that are available to you. Please, let Dr. Godwin add something to this.
Thank you, Dr. Lukem. Sometimes the data gathering is assuming you are in the laboratory. You are carrying out some analysis. Maybe you are in a chemistry lab, for example. You are combining chemicals. You must determine which chemicals you are going to combine. What is the the reaction. What are you expecting to obtain? How is the concentration going to be? So these are things you must determine to obtain. You must know what materials you need, the concentration of each, and the quantities you are going to require, and the reaction rates. These are things that are going to impact your work. So whatever you are getting at each point, they are recorded. The dates are written. The times are written. What you obtained, the everything is recorded. So these are things that informs your data. These are the things that inform your analysis. So you must be able to test which one, how does this affect that? What are you seeing? Are there changes in color? Are there changes in the material? Is it a mixture? Is it a compound? What are the things that you are seeing? Those are the data you are gathering. At the end of the day, you are seeing things that are of value, which affects your thinking, and the analysis you are carrying out gives you what your data is. So it is not one size fits all. It is dependent on what your investigation is all about. So, and you don't have something in view. This is what I'm going to get as my result. It is the result, the combination that gives you the result. You don't expect a result. I want to discover. You are not discovering anything. It is at the process that discovery comes. Most discoveries are by mistake. I've been saying it. So it is not that I want to go and discover. It is the analysis. It is the data that will lead you there. What is unusual? What is not? What is everyday occurrence that now gives you a lead to new outcomes. Thank you, Dr. Olukemi.
Thank you. I have the slide already, data analysis or analysis of data. Analysis of data is the crux of the matter in any research. It's talking what is it about? Is the reading meaning to what is behind the figures or statements made. They must be combined in different ways to reveal what is behind those numbers or those texts. So you don't assume. Figures alone does not make sense until it is interpreted and tied down and then backed up with previous scholars in that area, what they have said, what they have not said, what you have discovered in your own research, which will be new, which will contribute to new knowledge. So the data analysis is very important. You cannot submit your thesis without analyzing the data you have gathered from your respondents or your participants. So you look at what tools can you use to analyze your data. SPSS, Stata, R, Python for quantitative, NVivo or NVivo, Atlas T, and many more for qualitative. When to analyze after data cleaning and validation, and you have already input them in the SPSS or whichever tools you are going to use. So you now have to run it, and once you have run it, whatever the outcomes and the output, it is what you are going to interpret. There's no doctoring the result. It's not, even when you put it in the SPSS, it is what has been generated through the analysis. It is then you interpret. You don't assume. You interpret what you are seeing and then support it with other previous claims by other authors, and then you justify. Okay, that is research. That is PhD research. That is masters. PhD is a program that you have to think. The doctor of philosophy is a doctor of thinking through. You turn it upside down sideways, backwards, center forward. But that is the thinking that is involved, that is expected of any PhD or postgraduate student. Okay, why do you analyze? To identify statistically significant and thematic insights. Because when you're analyzing, does this one affect, is it moderately significant or low, very low influence, does not have much influence, or high influence of whatever you are measuring? Okay, who does the analysis? The researcher. Though the statistician can help you, because if you have a large data, then the statistician, but he must explain to you what they have done, so that you are the one doing the interpretation. You are the one doing the conducting the research. So you must understand the outcomes, the output from the SPSS tool or Stata or other research tools. If it's quantitative, even qualitative is much better, because you are going to synthesize what they have said. That one is, I would say, well, I won't say it is much easier, but everybody knows his own area of specialization. So you must understand, whoever has helped you to analyze the data, you must sit down to study the output and understand, ask questions, and be able to interpret the data. So the researcher, with possible input from a statistician, the statistician too will help you. He has a role to play. And that's why universities are going to have statisticians in the university. It's like you having the English writing centers. It's the same. Okay, so where the data lab, home office, or university center, where the school, the library, and the simulation offices, where the school, the university has provided for you, or the organization, or any organization that is involved in statistics, and they have given you permission to make use of their tools. It's your data, but you have to input it. And then how you can use descriptive statistics, regression analysis, ANOVA, content coding, thematic, synchronizing all together, and making sure you understand what we are talking about. Okay, so now let Dr. Godwin add to what I've said.
I thank you very much. What you just added to data analysis is very important. Whether you have given your material to statistician to run for you, the statistician is not in your field. Whatever statistician has given you is what was generated by the software of the data you have given. So you have to relate the results to your own subject, specific subject. So you must understand the relationship that operates in your domain. That is your work. It's not you work of a statistician. The statistician is just to give you, this is what your data gave by comparing them. Yes, it gave these results. But interpreting it, so people say, okay, you have this value of Cronbach alpha, it is 0.25. Other people say reject. It's not rejection. It's telling you that is an area you need serious improvement. It's not saying that it is a wrong information. It's telling you that point is low. It needs serious intervention. That is what it's saying. So it is not that remove it. It's not removal. That is where the discovery is. That is where you have to work on. So that is why you must understand the reason for result. Result is not just for decoration. They are to be interpreted meaningfully, and it requires insight and ingenuity. Thank you, Dr. Oluken.
Now we move on to interpretation of data. Like we have said, once we have inputted the data in SPSS or Strata or Python, or qualitative on Vivo or Atlas T and what have you. Then you must interpret the output. That is another very critical aspect of research. What does it mean? Interpretation of data means that you give meaning to your analysis. How does it apply to your field, to that topic you are talking about? You might have the same result but have a different interpretation due to different disciplines. In economics, you look at the threshold of this and that, the inflation rate, the index, price index. Thank you, Dr. Godwin. You see, so it depends on your area. In human resource, the attitudes. In psychology, you look at motivation, leadership. It's a constructing psychology, sociology, human resources. These are things that you can use to interpret your data. Even especially human resources, you can go back to psychology to use it to make concrete explanation and interpretation of your study. Okay, so it depends on your discipline. Interpretation is core and is key for you to really be able to explain yourself. Okay, you explain the results suggesting everything you want to know. Why? To connect findings back to literature and theory. Why do you need interpretation? You have to, interpretation is important. That's why when you now finish with the interpretation, you have to support it with findings, the previous authors, scholars in this area, this and that, back it up with literature and the theory supporting it, and then the citations in terms of dates and the year. Then you reference it at the back, the names, the reference, the dates, and the publishers. Okay, when it comes after the analysis, is post-analysis before concluding. So it is after the methodology, you now say interpretation of findings. This is the same thing as interpretation of data. No, even interpretation comes in after that. What did you find in the interpretation? That is finding. Okay, findings. Okay, who interprets? The researcher, possibly with feedback from, maybe if your supervisor is able to go through your before you go to defend. Because when you get to defense, before the panelists, your copies will have been sent to the moderator, external moderators, 2 or 3, depending on the university system and policy. Okay, so with that moderator's feedback, with your supervisor that has done his own internally, will be combined together to do what you need to do and correct. But before then, it is you that will do the interpretation. Even statistician cannot do interpretation. He can explain, but you have to apply the interpretation to the topic that you have investigated in your discipline. So how do you interpret the data? By comparing expected versus the actual. And that's why this issue of hypothesis come in. Then if you compare, the hypothesis is that you have already written that align with your research objectives. Then you look at it. Is it supporting or rejecting? You have already said organizational commitment, organizational justice has no significant relationship with employee commitment in manufacturing industry. Then in your analysis and the outcome, it shows that organizational justice has significant influence on employee commitment in the manufacturing. So you reject the null hypothesis and accept the alternative hypothesis. That is it. You compare the expected with the actual. What you are expecting is your assumption in the hypothesis, which still aligns with your research objectives, research questions, hypothesis. It must go throughout your chapters in the research. So because you are not discussing anything in isolation, it must have the backing of your hypothesis, whether you reject or accept. That is where you have to reject or accept. Thank you, Dr. Godwin. I know you have something to say here.
Thank you very much. I'm glad that you are talking it this way. The interpretation, as you've just said, is the real issue. Once you have interpreted, you have done your work, you have gathered the data, done the analysis, interpreted, then you are now connecting the I's, dotting the I's, crossing the T's. You now say that it is important that you get it, that each and every aspect of it holds. There is coherence, there is precision, there is quality, and there's a thread and a trend in what you are doing. And as you just said, interpretation is important. That is why sometimes people outside your domain can help you see what you are not seeing, because they are fresh, they are new. So they can say, this I are seeing this. I'm seeing a bifurcation. I didn't see it a bifurcation. Because you have been used to it, you are seeing what you are expecting to see. But somebody else can see, is non-biased, can say, oh, this is, and it can be something very new and unique. That is why when you are having interpretation, let other people look at it and discuss with them so that it gives you a better, do they understand? Does it resonate with them? That gives you a better way of doing your interpretation. Thank you very much, Dr. Olukem.
Thank you for the contribution. Let's move on to the next slide. Interpretation. No. That's where findings and outcomes. Okay. Findings. These are discoveries of the outcomes of the research obtained, that particular research, okay, that you have obtained from that research. Findings after interpretation, then you are now making discoveries. Okay, these are the things I'm getting. Then the findings will help you to either make a link to support or not to support, or to retain, like what I've said. Okay, what were the findings? Is it a strong link, or a significant relationship, or a weak or moderate or no relationship at all? Where to obtain, from the analysis, regression models, the themes. If we are looking at the qualitative research now, the themes that they have supported, are they how many people, the frequencies, the number of people that agree to this? That is the theme. The theme that is so common with the respondents are the ones that will drive the explanation. Okay. So from the ANOVA, analysis of variance, MANOVA, t-test, those are the model summary, the regression analysis, and the beta coefficient. All those inferential statistics will help you to get it, to make your findings. Who benefits? The organization, yourself, the researcher, the government, the policy makers, and other stakeholders. Why are they useful? Findings are useful because it is they are instrumental to development of the organization, the nation, the researchers, and it will add value if you have done it well, and they'll be useful to that organization. How will they be used? For policy briefs, internal report, peer-reviewed journal publishing, and so many things. I want Dr. Godwin to come to add more information to this.
Thank you very much, Dr. Lukemi. I want to look at one particular aspect of these 5 W's and H to composite, to make it practical. I want to start. What is a composite? What type of composite? What materials comprise the composite? What is a combination of the composite? What characterizes the composite? How is a composite configured? Where is a composite? Where is a composite used? Where is composite not useful? Where does composite fail? Where is the safety factor of composite? When is a composite necessary? When is a composite not necessary? When is a composite flexible and bendable? When is a composite a strength or a strengthener? When is a composite lightweight? Cost optimization. How can these composite properties be achieved? Who is a composite? Combination of one or two things. Who uses a composite? Who are the components of a composite? Who does compositing and composites? Whose domain are you considering? Composite specifics, research area. Who strengthens a cause of failure in composites? Why composite? Why is composite necessary? Why use a composite? Why not use a composite at all? Why is a composite admissible? Why specific composite materials are advisable or specific assignments? So you can see how are composites made, how are composites combined, how are composites composited, how are composites mixed as physical change or compound, how are phase equivalences used in compositing, how are electrons potential in material boundaries handled. These are things you see. Why a composite? Because it's a combination of one or two things that makes for strength, lightweight, cost, better safety factor, and more efficiency and better outcomes. Look at me.
Thank you, Dr. Godwin. Let's move on to the summary, conclusion, and recommendation. Still using the 5 W's and H. That is our focus. I believe we are still following. Why summarize? The summary is a short statement encapsulating all that you have obtained in clear, distinct, coherent, lucid statements. Conclusion, on the other hand, is you are now coming to a close that you have done all this. These are the most important things. That is why until you have written conclusion. You see, it means that from all this, these are the important points. That is the conclusion. Recommendations are suggestions for further work to be done by the present research or by others, or suggesting other works of the and the ways of doing them. Okay, so we are going to look at them together: summary, conclusion, and recommendations. Why summary? I've said to consolidate insight for decision making. What does it cover? Key findings, implications, and actionable steps. When to write it after final data and interpretation and findings. Where is it placed in the final chapter? The final chapter, or there's even final chapter, which is chapter 5 or 6 or 7, depending on your university house style, and the funder. If it's being funded, they will give you the format of what is expected. Okay, when to write after data interpretation findings. Where is it applicable? The last chapters, that's what I've just said. Who writes it? The researcher is addressing both the academic and then practical audiences, the stakeholders. If it is in the institution of higher learning, it is academics or the administrators within the institute and other stakeholders. Okay, how to do it? You have your format, how to write it according to the university house style. Even when you are publishing, you should follow the format given by the publisher. That is that. Let Dr. Godwin contribute to this, please.
Thank you, Dr. Lukemi. It is important that summary gives a close to what you have been doing, and it makes it clear that what your object was to achieve were achieved. That is a summary that you have gone through the process, that you are now coming to a close, that these are the insights you are able to have. And that brings about whether there was time to celebrate or is a time of lamentation. So that is why it is important that summary brings a closure to whatever you are doing and the contribution which this you are able to arrive at comes to bear. Thank you, Dr. Luke.
Yeah. The next slide talks about contribution to knowledge. Contribution is talking about what makes your job universal. If you have really added value, something new, it makes it universal. People outside your domain, even your locality where you have conducted the research, will be looking out for your work and what is the plate you are serving to the world. Okay, then what does your plate contain? Quality, quantity, and what have you. So that is what makes your work universal as a researcher. So what is it? The new link established. Is there any new link? What is the contribution to knowledge? Is there any added value concerning? Is there any new model? Is there any optimal model that can be used to remedy the problems that you started with and to give the solution? Okay. Why is contribution important? It will expound and expand the theories behind what you have initially said, okay, or you have presented, okay, concerning the phenomenon that you have researched upon. When to highlight in the final chapter and also in the abstract, because the abstract is an helicopter view of what you have done so far, so that anybody reading the abstract we have an idea of what you have done. Seriously, if you really craft the abstract very well. So the contribution to knowledge should appear there too after you have systematically presented the abstract. Where is it visible? The contribution to knowledge is visible in your research design and even your findings and the model that you have suggested and the implications of the findings. How to articulate it? You articulate it as a concise statement of originality. It is original. It's not done before. No matter how little the contribution is, it is an added value to the body of knowledge at large. And it will link to other gaps in the literature you have reviewed previously. Over to you, Dr. Godwin.
Thank you very much. I'm happy when you said the abstract is a helicopter view. It is the advertisement of the work. It shows the introduction. It shows the method you have used for that particular investigation. It shows the results you obtained. It shows the contribution. It shows the conclusion, and it shows the recommendation. So it is a way to present the work that this is the sequence that you followed. This is what you achieved. And it is the abstract, which is the advertisement of the work. It will determine whether people will read it or do not read it. So if your abstract is poorly constructed, nobody will look at your work because you say that you did no work. So that is why abstract must be able to nail it down and hammer it and make sure that it's advertisement to the work.
Yeah, and finally, the last slide talks about further studies or open questions. What else can be studied? That's what it means. What is it about? It's talking about what other areas that the current research did not touch or could not because of time limitation. Okay, so you look at that. Where any other population or location that was not originally considered because of the costs, financial constraints, geographical limitation and other limitations. Okay, who can research it? Future graduate students, early career researchers, anyone that is interested in that area of research. Why is it needed? To build on findings and test generalizability, to expound the frontiers of knowledge in that area as well. How to pursue it? By refining current instruments or adopting longitudinal studies, or even you can still conduct a cross-sectional survey in order to help us to further study. Dr. Godwin, over to you.
Thank you very much for the work done and the explanations given, and they are insightful. I believe they are okay. Thanks.
In closing, thank you, everyone. In closing, continue watching our videos on academic research essentials. Like, comment, share, and subscribe to enrich your research journey. For consultation, you have seen my contact there. We wish you all the best. Thank you all.